Love, love. And the Beatles playing that song. Love, love, love. It's easy. Is it really easy? Is it easy? Don't you love this song, Chris?
I do.
I did warn everybody that February is all about love. Love, love, love. As the Beatles put it, all you need is love. Is that true, though? Is it really true? We're going to examine love over this month. We're going to have conversations about it. Hi, everybody. Yes, it's off the cuff. And about time, too. It's been a while since we did an off the cuff, but before we begin our off the cuff stuff, I'd like to say hello to Gregel, who, as you all know, is right by my side. And hey, Chris, how are you loving
Hello.
off the cuff stuff?
We're going to have a good time tonight.
We are. And what I'd like to do, I'm going to talk a little tiny bit. I'm going to set you all off. But as soon as we stop having audience participation, Chris and I are quitting. Is that right, Chris?
That is.
Because we love, if you see my lights flickering, it's no, there are no fireworks. It's not any spooky stuff, although it does look a bit like spooky stuff. It's just one of my light bulbs does that from time to time. Maybe it is spooky stuff, and I'm not really sure. I'm not really realizing it. So February, of course, is Valentine's Day, the 14th, where if you have a loved one, whether it's a girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband, partner, mother, father, husband, did I say husband? I think I did, because it applies to all of us. You know, I think the sisters should send Valentine cards to each other if they love each other and they want the sister to know. Why not? And why not send flowers or go and pick daisies in the field? Or I know it's winter time. Well, I think we do have daisies in our fields in Florida because it's no snow here. But there are lots of different ways that we can express our love. Part of the exercise for you guys tonight is we want to know what are the best ways that you have of expressing your love, and we'd love to know who was your first love, and that's where we're going to begin tonight. And believe it or not, I have my first love right here with me, sitting on the sofa next to me, as a matter of fact. Are you intrigued, Chris?
I am.
It was Christmas time. Story, here we go. Story. It was Christmas time. And my father was an army man, and he was a professional soldier. That means he stayed in the army all of his life. He was a professional soldier, and for the first and only time ever that we went with him when he was shipped overseas was when I was 6 years old, and we went to Germany. And at that time, we'd never really spent Christmas with my father, because he was always, you know, until we were much older, because he was always away somewhere or another doing his soldiering bit. And so this was unique for us. There were my three sisters and myself. My two brothers were old enough to stay home. And so there were my three sisters and myself. Now, we had a routine with my mother. We used to, Santa would come and bring the sacks, which looked very much like pillowcases to us, and fill them with toys, which we would always find at the foot of the bed. And when we'd start to open them, my mother's voice would come from the bedroom. If it was sort of 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, or even 7 o'clock in the morning, somehow or another she'd hear the rustling from her bedroom, and you'd hear this voice, "Go back to sleep." So you wouldn't dare open until you were allowed to, until it was time to. I'm sure this is a familiar story for many of you here. Anyway, so now we were in Germany, and my mother was not present on this particular Christmas time. The first and only time I think that she wasn't present at Christmas time, and it turned out that she was in the hospital, which is probably why we all ended up in Germany in the first place. Anyway, so my three sisters and I, we wake up on Christmas morning. The first thing before Christmas morning, the first and most extraordinary thing that we had no Christmas tree. And we used to put our Christmas tree up when I was a little girl, and with my mother, we used to put up the Christmas tree. It was a tiny Christmas tree that stood on top of the TV set. And we would sometimes sing carols and, you know, all of that stuff. But we loved having the Christmas tree, even though it was small. It was just special. Here we are, it's Christmas Eve, no Christmas tree, and we're made to go to bed early. We wake up on Christmas morning. Santa hasn't been, it would seem. And we were all, my sisters and I, we were all in one big bedroom. Each of us had a bed against one of the walls of the bedroom. And so, you know, we sit up and we look around and we look under the bed and and there's nothing. No Christmas gifts whatsoever. Santa hasn't been, and we don't know quite what to do. So we all sit there and sort of, we can hear faint noises downstairs and, you know, teacups rattling and somebody's in the kitchen, and all of a sudden my father shouts up, "Come on, everybody, get up out of bed." And boy, oh boy, we get up, but we're not happy. We, you know, slog down the stairs. This is the weirdest Christmas day that we've ever had. And so we're all sort of really unhappy. We don't quite know what to do. We've never ever not had Christmas before. Well, then guess what? Then we walk into the living room where there is the most enormous Christmas tree we have ever seen. It goes from the floor to the ceiling. My father had obviously waited until we'd gone to bed, and then he sort of decorated the tree. And our eyes first of all went to the tree, and then under the tree were lots of parcels, lots of Christmas gifts, and each one was labeled. And the most amazing thing, one of the most amazing things, was every parcel was wrapped in Christmas paper. Now, with my mother, Santa never used to wrap any of the gifts. They were just stuffed into a pillowcase, and that was the end of that. But Santa had been, and he'd wrapped all of these Christmas presents, and every present, every parcel had a label on it. We didn't quite know what to do because this was so unusual, and we all of us stood back and sort of gaped. And then my dad said, you know, "Go on then, you know, take a look, make sure you open the one that has your name on it." And I'm sure we had 2 or 3 gifts apiece. But under the tree was a fairly large parcel with my name on it. I'm going to say it was maybe, I'm sort of checking here, it was maybe about this big. And I couldn't begin to guess what it must be. And I open it up and I spy my very first love. Got any guesses, anybody? Don't guess, because I'm going to show you. He's a little bit ragged now. He's not nearly as sort of bright and shiny and sparkling as he used to be. Hello, Teddy. So here, for all of you, is my first love.
Aww.
And Teddy is filled with straw. That shows you how old I am, right? Teddy is filled with straw. Now, I don't know if he'll speak to you all. Let's try him and see. Sometimes he has his growl and sometimes he does not. So let's see. Are we, oh gosh, are we ready? Let me tip him back and then we'll, oh, it was, I don't know if you heard that. Let me try again. Oh, very, very poor showing, Teddy. Okay, so Teddy, this is my first love. Say hello, Teddy. Hello, everybody. And I was so overwhelmed because I'd never had a teddy bear before. I was 6 years old. My youngest sister had a teddy bear. I think maybe one of my older sisters had a teddy bear. Never had a teddy bear. I was so overwhelmed and overcome with joy. Now this teddy he was a bit beaten up, I have to tell you, because I've had him sort of repaired. His ear was torn off, still hanging by a thread. His arm was out of its socket. The pads of his feet were worn out. So he's had a bit of a clean up, sort of, haven't you? And a bit of a tidy up. But imagine this, I'm a little girl, I'm 6 years old. Every single day, looking at me, every single day, I took him to school. I brought him home from school. Every single day, I would have some of the kids in the school following, making fun. Oh, she's got a teddy. Oh, what a baby she is, and so on. I didn't care because I loved this teddy that at that time I believed Santa had brought for me. Now, I don't remember the gifts my sisters had. I was the only one who got a teddy bear. I was the only one who probably would have valued a teddy bear. And over the years, I've realised, of course, that my daddy obviously knew me much better than I thought he did. And he bought me the most perfect gift. So it's sort of a weird thing, but there's a love that goes to Teddy, but there's also a special love that goes to my daddy because he bought me this beautiful, treasured possession. And Teddy was my friend. Teddy was, because I was very isolated as a kid, even though I had 3 sisters, they were very different than me. I spent an awful lot of time on my own. Remember, I used to hear voices, see faces. Teddy was my, let's say, he was the thing that grounded me, that helped to center me in troubled times. I was so protective of my Teddy and so careful about, where I took him and who could play with him, and his head is, can you see his head's not doing ever so well, but anyway, Teddy is definitely my first real love. Now, I know that before I showed you Teddy, I know that probably if I'd said to you all, can you remember who your first love is? And I actually asked Chris before the show, and she said, of course, her husband. We don't think of, Teddy's a material thing. So is it right that I should hold such value onto this material thing? But it's not Teddy as much as what this gift represents. I was given a friend. I was given someone I could confide in. I was given someone I could hold tight to. I was a very shy little girl. I was a very nervous little girl. And so I was given this amazing gift of someone I could, in a way, relate to, someone I could pour my love out to. And at 6 years old, of course, we don't really know or understand what we're doing. But then as we get older, we realize this Teddy was probably the first time I was able to really show a love and not be embarrassed about it, and not feel that, someone was going to criticize me. Although, my sisters made fun of me, and some friends made fun of me, and kids at school made fun of me. But Teddy was, I carried him around for years. And here we are, you see, and I'm still carrying him around with me. He sits in a basket with Daisy and with, one or two others. I'll show you Daisy another time, the ugliest thing you ever saw, and I'll tell you that story. Anyway, here is my first love. Um, Something that I could express my love to and with. And I think that so many people have a hard time showing love. So many people are embarrassed about showing love. So many people have been rejected in love and therefore close up or they don't show love. But Teddy was my way, somehow the portal through which all of my feelings, my sensitivity, and my caring was allowed to flourish. So yes, he's only a teddy, and yes, he's made of straw, and he's a bit bald in places. He's a bit worn, um, but he's really special. And I would like to think that when I sort of leave this mortal plane of ours, I'd like to think that maybe Samantha or Reese might think the same of Teddy, but it's doubtful, isn't it? So I'm not quite sure what will happen to you. Maybe they'll put him in my coffin with me, and we'll both go up in flames. How about that? Would you want that, Teddy? But that would be awful, wouldn't it? So I'm hoping maybe Reese or Samantha will love Teddy. Not maybe as much as me, but anyway, lots of different types of love, lots of different ways to express love. So my question to all of you is, who was your first love? And you've heard that my first love gave me the ability to show love. What do you think your first love gave to you? What do you think it did for you? We'd love to hear from you. So, Chris, do we have anybody here? Is there anybody watching?
Oh, we have a lot of people.
Okay.
A ton of comments about how Teddy is a darling, a lot of awes. Their guesses was a puppy before you brought out Teddy.
No, sorry. No, no. That would not be my first love, would it? But yeah, I mean, so anyway, so that's great. And I'm glad that you're all joining in with the off the cuff stuff. And we don't really have an agenda. We're looking to all of you to set the agenda. So as soon as if you keep participating, we want to hear from you, and we want to hear, sort of what your first love is, or what do you perceive love as? I mean, what are your ideas of love? And do you buy into the fact that I know some people think you only get one chance at that special love. I don't agree with that. I think that we get actually sometimes a few chances at that special love. But talking of special love, you all know that I have to mention my daughter Samantha Jane, and I also have to mention my grandson Reese Astle. I mean, sorry, Teddy, you got to take sort of third place there, but or joint. Actually, they're joint, so maybe second place there. Anyway, so we want to hear from you. Say bye bye, Teddy, to everybody. do
He
you
is
think?
so cute.
Do you think I've lost the plot?
Not at all. Think of the book, The Velveteen Rabbit. I mean,
I don't.
similar.
I don't know what that book is, Chris. Anyway,
Really?
no. So Teddy, applaud. Say you're applauding everybody. Say bye bye to everybody. I might let you come back in before we end the show. What do you think? Yeah. Okay. All right. So come on, Chris. Sorry, Teddy, but you know,
Well, first
take
off, let's start with Janet, who's letting us know that tomorrow is her birthday.
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Janet. Happy birthday, dear Janet. Happy birthday to you.
All right. Cheryl is saying,
Hi,
my
darling.
first love, goodness, that's hard to remember. I would say it was a boy in elementary school who did not feel the same.
Oh no, how awful. Well, I've got some other loves. Anthony Booth. If Anthony Booth, if you are anywhere, if you are listening, if anybody knows Anthony Booth, just say hello from me. He'll know who I am. I'll tell that story perhaps another time. Anyway, keep going, Chris.
All right. Ireland says, love and loved all of our family pets, past and present. Pure, unconditional
Yes,
love.
but that's not good enough. I want the first love. Give me your first love. Is it so tough? Is it so hard? Perhaps you can't even remember. But it would be nice if we could remember our first love, because I think that our first love is very important to us, or can be very important to us, because as I've said with Teddy, it it teaches us, we talk about our animals and they teach us unconditional love, but our toys, our teddies, our dolls, my Susan and Jennifer, I'll bring those out at another time, they teach us unconditional love, because we sort of get into that mode of let's pretend, but there's a very, very fine line between sort of fantasy and reality. And the reality is that these things can teach us, allow us to express ourselves, whereas certainly in my family you couldn't express yourself at all, except through your play, except through your dolls, through your toys, and so on. So come on, everybody, and if it's a little puppy, or if it's a little kitten, or if it's your baby brother or sister, whatever it is, let's have some real sort of, good old stuff going on. Chris.
All right. Annika says, I was in love several times as a young girl,
Wow.
but was a bit of an ugly duckling in my teenage years.
No.
My first boyfriend became my first husband after
Oh.
dating for 8 years. After we separated, I met my darling Neil, who, without a doubt, was and is the love of my life.
Oh, nice, 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 nice. But that's not the first love, is it? um, you know, what did that feel like to you? How did it make you? I mean, I know when they don't work out, there's disappointments and so on and so forth. But can you remember the first flush of love? Can you remember the tug of the heartstrings? When I, as 6 years old, I can remember unwrapping Teddy, and I can remember very vividly that tug on the heartstrings, oh, that, oh, really? That sort of thing. And poured my heart and soul into, and as you can see, lots and lots of years later, we're not going to go into that, but lots and lots and lots of years later, he is still around. Chris.
Carol says, Teddy sounds like me after my auto accident. Bits loose here, things missing there.
Well, we can hopefully put you back together, even better perhaps than you were before. Chris.
Bridget says, I had a friend like Teddy. I called him Ted, and he was my childhood teddy bear and my first love as well. He held my hand through hard times too.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. I love that story. I love that you called him Ted. My Teddy he was just Teddy. Um, yeah, he was just Teddy. Keep going, Chris. This is fun. I want to hear what everybody has to say.
Cheryl says, I was a weird kid. I never really liked, quote, things. I'd play with them a while, then forget them. Experiences were my favorite things. Walks with my mom, family, fun times, etc.
Okay, what was your first love? Was it the first time you remember walking in a park with your mum? What was it? Was it the first time you ate ice cream? Did ice cream become your first love? What was it? Chris.
Kate says, I still have a ginormous 4-foot teddy from
Oh,
early adulthood therapy, lol. It was my inner child. I had to learn to love metaphorically, but she's still around.
Yeah, you see, that's really what we're talking about, isn't it? How, I mean, our, toys can be so therapeutic. I remember, reading for Teddy every time there was a fight in the house, every time my parents fought, every time there was an argument, every time my father dealt out punishment and so on. And his punishments were rather legendary. Go upstairs, take your pants off, lean over the bed and wait for me to come. And sometimes he'd make you wait forever and ever. And sometimes he'd come up fairly soon, but every time you get the whacking of your life on your bare bottom. Um, I would reach for Teddy. I would reach for him all the time. So I think, that first love and that first thing that we can care about, I think it can be so helpful to us and so therapeutic to us. And it can also really sustain us and give us strength. So, this is what I want you to delve into, everybody. I want you to sort of figure out what kind of love is it that gave you strength. And I know that Teddy and loving Teddy was able to give me strength and courage because I remember, going to, we still in Germany, we had a maid and we had to go to her house for some reason or another. And she had two older sons. And I can remember quite distinctly that they grabbed Teddy and they were throwing him around the room and they were throwing him to each other. And I was so distressed. And the more they saw I was distressed, the more they did it, two typical bullies, obviously. But I would fight for him, whereas I wouldn't fight for me. I would fight just like I've learned to fight for others in the past when I would, hesitate to fight for myself. So, it's important to find out what it was that we loved that gave us strength, gave us comfort, and gave us power in a way. Chris.
Judith says, my best stuffed animal friend was Zip, a copy of Zippy the Chimp from TV.
Okay.
I had him for 55 years. He
Oh,
was killed by a downpour and mold. I will always
oh,
remember him.
oh, poor Zip. What a way to go. What a way to go. But how wonderful that you had him for 55 years. And I bet he was so much of a comfort to you. Thanks for sharing that. Chris, I'm so sorry he died that way.
I know it. Sandra says, my first love was my cat, Sam, who was
Oh,
given to me when I was 5. I told him all my secrets, was always there when I was sad or happy.
oh, how cute. How cute. I suppose he died too, but what did you get from that? Did this little kitten give you the comfort that you needed when you were sad as a child? Did this little kitten give you strength and give you encouragement? I mean, what a wonderful gift. What nice parents to give you that gift too. Chris.
Kate says, romantically or otherwise, because my first true, all encompassing love was my first child, my son Jack, to be honest.
Well, yes. Now that is a special kind of love. That is the love only a parent can know and can give. I think a mother's, speaking for myself, a mother's love is so all empowering and overpowering. I know that as a mother myself, um, it's so easy to, we love our children. It's so easy to sort of go slightly overboard and smother rather than mother. And I know that I smothered my baby somewhat. I mean, she must have had several changes of clothes. She'd only have to spit on a dress and it would come and a clean one would be on. I was continually checking to see if she was, if a nappy or diaper was wet, and if it was even slightly damp, off it would come. We can be a little bit obsessive in our love, can't we? Fortunately, by the time she got to 2, I was sort of, over that. But still, a mother's love, and I can't speak to a father's love. Any fathers out there want to comment, please feel free. But I know that a mother's love is so overwhelming and so overpowering. But I have to say that again, I'm coming back to Teddy in a weird way, to Teddy, and then on to Susan and to Jennifer and to Daisy. These were all important toys for me, which I would talk to them, I would express myself with them, and I know that they taught me how to be expressive in my love, which was absolutely discouraged in the rest of my life through my family. I mean, I don't think I ever, in fact, I know that I never ever heard my parents say that they loved each other. It's doubtful that they did. I certainly, we as sisters never told each other that we loved each other. It just was not the language that we used. We were discouraged from using any sentiment of any kind. If I was the crybaby of the family because I would easily cry because I was a very sensitive kid and would get upset very easily. And of course, then my sisters would have a field day, and my brothers too. Uh, Even though they were older and should have known better, oh gosh, she's crying again. And of course, when they treat you that way, then you cry even more. So I think that uh, you've all, I think, heard me say this before. I'm very grateful to my family, and I'm very grateful to my parents because they taught me how not to be. And I think that's huge. But I don't think I would have learned that lesson nearly as well had I not had my Teddy and my dolls to express my feelings with. Interesting, right? Chris, keep going.
Maggie says it's a good question. I can't think of anything, except I remember thinking my dad was the most handsome ever, and
Ah,
our relationship was very contentious.
oh, wow. I thought you were going to say it was great, but isn't that interesting? But you did see him as handsome. Maybe you saw him as that wonderful hero, and then he continually disappointed you, the poor man. Which was probably why, why can't you be as handsome in your behavior as you are in your looks, sort of thing. Interesting. Chris.
Nancy says, I don't know if I can remember, but I loved all of my Barbie dolls when I was a child.
Oh, did you have Barbie dolls? Oh, how cute is that? They're very weird looking, don't you think? My dolls were just sort of, well, maybe I'll bring one of my dolls to our story time on Saturday. You never know. Or maybe I'll bring Daisy and tell that story. Anyway, keep going, Chris.
Judith says, The Velveteen Rabbit, such a wonderful story. Stays with us forever. Marjorie Williams, a British children's book. You
I've
really
ne-
haven't read that?
I really haven't. I'm going to search it out because I think by the sounds of it, reason I should be reading that book.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a must read. Rhonda says, My first love was a kitten brought to me by friends when I was 12. My dad didn't like cats, so I hid him in a diaper box for a couple of days until my dad found out. We ended up having this cat for almost 20 years.
Oh,
He
nice.
slept with me and helped me through my teenage years. Oh, how I've
Oh,
loved him.
oh, wow. I remember my first wonderful pet who I loved. It's a very sad story, but my first pet was Dusty, and he was a hamster, and he slept in my bedroom, and and there are lots of tales about Dusty, and I used to have him in my bed with me, crawling all over the place, and I loved him to pieces. I really loved Dusty until my mother trod on him and killed him. Thought you might like
Oh,
that.
God.
Thought you might like that. Sorry.
This
Oh,
is such a mix of highs and lows. Oh man.
it's a very sad. Why I'm laughing, I don't know. But, I mean, but it is a very sad story. But I have a very British sense of humour. So, excuse me. So anyway, there you go. Keep going,
Nancy
Chris.
Nancy says my mom once told me when I was little, I always wanted to bring every animal I saw home.
Oh yeah, well, I think there are a few people like that, and I know we've got a few people who visit our shows who are like that. I love my puppies. You all know that. You've heard stories of my puppies, but I'm going to admit something to you now that will make you gasp in dismay because I know I'm going to disappoint you all. I know that so many of you who know me think I'm a dog person. And sort of on the one hand, I am a dog person. Rather than a cat person, I'm a dog person. However, I don't necessarily like all dogs. I only like my own. And occasionally I'll see other dogs that I quite like. But I don't, you know, encompass all dogs in, because I know that there are a lot of people who truly are dog people who will take on any dog and love any dog. And that's, sorry to disappoint, but that's not me. Chris, moving on quickly before we give people a chance to sort of throw rotten tomatoes at me now.
All
Keep
right.
going.
Heather says her first love was the older brother of one of my best friends. I
Oh,
was 5 at the time, and I loved him secretly because I was very shy for at least
oh,
7 years before another caught my eye.
wow.
By then, he had left the country. I re-met him in France when I was 17. We did not get together, but we are still in touch. I remember my heart pounding when I was 10 or so. Very
Oh,
special.
I love that. I absolutely love that. My first boyfriend was Anthony Booth. He was so protective of me, and there was another girl in our class with red hair. I've never liked red-headed girls since then. And she was always trying to get hold of him, and she was always trying to sort of get him as her boyfriend, and he would have none of it. He was faithful to me, and he was faithful to me for years and years. And maybe one day I'll tell you the story of another time, another story. Here we go again. I love your story, Heather. I think it's a great, great story. Keep going, Chris.
Barb says, my first love was a little boxer puppy.
Oh,
My parents bought this for me as my 2 twin older sisters were starting school. They didn't want me to feel lonely as we were all so close. She taught me how to give lots of love and caring for someone else.
oh, I love that. I love that story. And what wonderful parents you have. See, in a way, in a good weird kind of a way, that's how my daddy gave me my teddy. I know it's not a dog or a cat or anything like that, but he just obviously knew that I needed someone just special for me. And obviously, your parents, what was his name, this little boxer puppy, we want to know. Obviously, your parents saw that need in you too. I think it's wonderful. Chris.
Kate says, my first experience of love in totality was my Mimi teaching me about our heritage, gifts, and abilities, and teaching me multiple creative outlets around the age of 4 to 6.
Now, would her Mimi mean her grandmother? Would that be? Not
I
sure.
would assume so. We'll see if Kate writes us
Yeah,
back.
write us back, Kate. Kate, we want to know. We're getting some very good responses here, Chris. So while we're at that point, what was your first love? Let's hear it. Come on.
Me?
Yes, you. Yes, you.
Oh, you got to give me a minute to think about that. I'm reading everybody's chats to try to get
Okay.
them
Well,
in
we'll
here.
come back. We'll come back to it in a few minutes. But hey, you're not being let off the hook here. Keep going.
Jeez. Flory says, my first love was running and catching fireflies with my grandmother.
Oh, nice. Wow. We don't have fireflies actually in England. I never saw a firefly until I came to the States and was in, I think, in Connecticut and staying with friends. And I got out of the car, and first of all, I heard this really incredibly noisy sound. The air was filled with this noise, and I wonder what on earth it was. And I was told by my friends that, that you're hearing crickets. We don't have that sound in England. And then I remember 2 or 3 days later, I was looking out of the window and I could see these little dashes of light here, there, and everywhere. And I was told that they were fireflies. It was quite, I mean, they were so magical to me. I couldn't believe how they lit up. It was quite a while later when I discovered how actually really ugly they look in the daylight. These sort of long, leggedy black thing, sort of like a large earwig. Um, but they are beautiful when they're flying, and they sort of have this like little tiny light that brightens up the sky. Chris.
All right. My first love was Sparky Sparkles. Sparky was a black lab
Oh,
given to me as a little puppy. We went to this was in Massachusetts. We went to the MSPCA, which is, a shelter for animals that if they stay there long enough are not going to make it. But I walked up and down the cages to look at the animals. My parents took me, and there was this little black lab who did not come running to the front door with all the other dogs. He sat in the back and just watched, and his eyes were sparkling such. And when everybody moved away, I said, "That's the one." And Sparky and I had many a good year together.
oh, Chris, I've never heard you tell that story. That's a fantastic story. I love that story. And you loved him, obviously.
He was my best pal.
Now, how did he help you? Did he help you in expressing love or expressing your feelings? I mean, uh, you know, did you find it helpful? In retrospect, of course.
Sparky was my confidant. I had no one else to talk to.
Yeah.
And he and I would go out for walks all the time, and we would just chit chat about everything that was happening in life. Exactly.
Okay, keep going.
All right. Maggie says, my grandpa had a rock garden on a small hill under a tree. As a child, I would go there to sit in the quiet. I loved it there and I felt a connection. But from the first through the years to this very day, a never ending love for deepest dark chocolate.
I can go with that. I have a very uh, dark love. It's not a dark love, but I have a very deep love of dark chocolate. But if it's got cherries in the middle, they are definitely my favorites. Absolutely, I love them, love them, love them. And anyway, um, yes, keep going, Chris. I don't know what else to say about dark chocolate. Keep going.
Well, I see Mitchell's joined us from, I think, Down Under,
Hi,
saying good
Mitchell. Hi,
morning.
darling. Happy New Year. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you to say Happy New Year to you. I think I was sick when the thing came in, and I'm still trying to respond to all the wonderful texts and emails I've got from people over the Christmas period. Keep going. Hi. So what does Mitchell have to tell us?
Exactly. We're waiting to hear.
What
Sh-
is your what was your first love, Mitchell? And how did it impact you in any way? And here is mine, just so if you've just joined us, here is my first love. It can be anything at all, anything you choose it to be. But we'd love to hear from you, my darling. Keep going, Chris.
Cheryl says it's a tough question, but she'll spill the truth.
Oh, wait. Take a minute. Do we get a drum roll? I'm excited, Cheryl. Come on, come on. Go for it.
My mom was my first love. I'd say, I craved her attention and felt so good when I got it. No toys made me feel better.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I like to think that Samantha would say the same thing. We all of us who are mothers would like to think that our children would say the same thing about us, but Cheryl, thank you, because puts everything in perspective there, doesn't it? Um, you know that the next time we do an off the cuff, I'm going to ask you about your first romantic love, and we want details. I shall be requiring details from everybody. I think it's really good for us to talk about love. I think it's a really good thing for us to remember how we feel when we love. I think it's a really good thing to be reminded of how we feel when we're expressing that love. I think that this is a great subject. It will be painful because as we go through the month, we're also going to talk about unrequited, let's do that again, unrequited love. We're going to be talking about, rejections that can happen through love. We're going to be talking to some of you who have a hard time showing love because of the fear of rejection. And what can we do about those things? So remember, it's a subject for the month. Chris,
All right, so here's Mitchell's first love.
okay, I'm listening. I'm listening.
When I was a child at school, we had a pet parade. I was so upset because I did not have a pet.
Oh no.
So my mother took a rock from the garden and we painted eyes on the rock and stuck hair on it, and this was my pet rock. Anyway, I won first prize for it. I guess they felt sorry for me.
Well, actually, I think your mother was very innovative, and how I want to know how do you feel about that? Can you remember how you felt at the time? Did you feel silly? Did you feel embarrassed, or were you pleased that you had something that you could love, even though it was a rock? But I think your mother was very innovative. But let's have the rest of the story, Mitchell, please, if you can.
He has
Chris.
already shared. The other parents and kids were so annoyed. They
Ah!
all brought their perfectly groomed and fluffed pets.
Well, yes. Well, you can imagine, right? You can imagine. Chris, keep going.
Okay,
We are getting some great stories, aren't we?
yes, Barb says my little boxer puppy was Susie.
Oh,
However, my second love was Al. After both of us married to someone else and later divorced, Al and I got back together for 20 years. He passed, and in your webinar, you told me he is always near and still sleeps with me.
oh.
Such fun to hear and I'm sure that he does.
You know, I love that story. A few years ago, not too many years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was um, I was in where was I? I was in Sarasota Airport, and I was waiting for a friend of mine to come from England, and her plane had been delayed and delayed and delayed. So at this point, it was probably around 11 o'clock at night time, and I was just sitting there waiting, and uh, 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 sort of next to me on the bench that I was sitting at was an older lady. And I was a little bit concerned for her because she seemed a little bit lost and what have you. And anyway, I started talking to her, and she happened to be British. And, she started to tell me her story. And it sort of reminded me of what we've just heard. But her story was sort of similar in so many ways. She had her very first love, a boy who, they were both sort of, I think, young teenagers at the time. And then his parents emigrated with him, took him off with them to Australia, and she didn't hear from him again for quite some time. And then, sort of, what with the internet and so on and so forth, they connected up again. In the meantime, he'd been married and had children. She'd been married and had children. Her marriage was an unhappy marriage. I think his was a fairly good marriage, but anyway, both of their spouses had died, and they started this correspondence with each other. And so this lady was in her early 80s, and she's telling me this entire story, and she was sitting there, she's so excited because she was waiting for her long lost love from her teenage years, and they'd been now pen pals for quite a long time, and they'd finally decided that it was time that they would meet. And so she came from England to Sarasota, and he came from Australia to Sarasota, and they'd booked a hotel, and they were going to spend a couple of weeks with each other to see if it would work out. It was a complicated thing, because she was sitting waiting and waiting, and his plane got delayed. And so I said to her, I remember saying to her, because I never met her before, but I said to her, if you need to, I can put you up for the night and I'll bring you back to, the airport in the morning, if that's. But as it turned out, her boyfriend somehow had got these telegraphs going between, because he was worried about her sitting in an airport waiting for him, and that the airport staff finally managed to get the name of the hotel they were staying at, and took her there. I never heard from her again, but I've always wondered, I wonder what happened to that wonderful lady, and was that, talk about first love and real romance, something like 50 years had gone by for both of them before since the first time they'd met. Anyway, that's a romantic kind of love, which is wonderful. But thank you, darling, for sharing that story, because it reminded me of this one. Chris.
All right. Carol says, I cannot say which love I had, as we had so many horses and other animals, but I do vividly remember a stuffed red dog that my Uncle Edward gave me once when I was very ill. Oh my God, I loved that dog. I wore the fluff off of him. Teddy, truthfully, was his name, and I wept bitterly when he was thrown away without my knowledge. Teddy, the small red dog. Teddy, the red dog stuffed toy. Best I ever had.
So now, what did Teddy do for you? Did he make you, you said you were ill. Did he make you feel better? Did he help you to heal? What was that first love like? What did it do for you? Did it give you encouragement? Did it give you strength? These are the things I want to know from all of you. What did you get out of, if anything at all, that first love, that first experience that can teach us something so important? Chris.
Well, you want to be watching the time now, Rosemary, because you'll be on that call with one of your first loves.
You mean my darling boy?
Yes.
Okay, I'm calling him any minute now. So are we done? Is it 8 o'clock?
It's just about 8. I don't have any more comments about what the first loves were, but the comments are that I love these stories. For
Well,
most everybody saying that.
we love this. We're going to be doing more off the cuff. Watch for the over the weekend. I'm going to be cracking the whip for both of us, Chris. You and I. We're going to be doing some off the cuffs. So do watch out for us, because we're going to ask you to share your stories. People join in because they want to hear me. They want to hear my stories, but I'm a curious person. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear, you know, what is it that drives you to us? What is it that drives you to the shows? What do you love? How about this? We'll revisit this in the next off the cuff. What do you love about joining in with us? that's it for tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. It's been a fantastic off the cuff. We've had some good off the cuff stuff. Uh, we shall be back with off the cuff watch for us over the weekend, but we'll also be back for story time. And I'm going to tell a story which illustrates how very clearly the spirit world can see us, and how we may be not always comfortable with that. But we're going to be visiting that, and we're going to be visiting the love of our angels, because our angels are those who watch over us. Do they judge us? Do they judge our bad behavior? Do they judge when we say naughty words? Oh golly, I hope not. I do hope not. But anyway, we're going to be talking about that and doing our story time as usual on Saturday morning. In the meantime, thank you everybody for joining. I'd like to especially say thank you to Grey Eagle, and Chris. Thank you so much. Mike is still here. I think he's going to be here all of this month, popping in and out, because after all, he is your Valentine, isn't he? I think
Yes,
that's
he
good.
is.
I think that's a good note to end it on. So until I see you all again, go to the website. Keep watching for us. Subscribe, and do all of that stuff as well, whatever that might mean. In the meantime, from Teddy and from me to all of you, we do love you so very much. It is about love, but we do, and I do love you all very, very much. And thank you so much for your support and just for joining in with us. Until I see you again, everyone, please, please, please have a very, very blessed rest of the day, night, whatever time it is. Mitchell is morning. Have a very, very blessed rest of the day, and I'll see you hopefully at the weekend. Bye bye, everybody.